In the spring of 1964, work began on the new Braves home in Atlanta, modern $18 million Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. The Braves were scheduled to begin play here the following spring, but a Wisconsin court order forced the Braves to play in Milwaukee for one final season. Located near downtown, Atlanta Stadium was ready for 1965, but destined only for exhibition and AAA Crackers games that year. Meanwhile in Milwaukee, workers were preparing for the Braves' final season at County Stadium, a season that would be moderately successful on the field, but controversial off the field and in the courtroom. A sad finish for one of the most successful baseball franchises in any city. When the Braves arrived in Milwaukee a dozen years before, fan enthusiasm was tremendous. The Braves led the majors in attendance 5 consecutive years and set a new National League record of over 2.2 million in 1957. The club won 2 pennants, tied for a third, won a world championship, and finished second 5 times. In 13 years in Milwaukee, the Braves never once had a losing season. Yet, by 1965, unpopular moves by Braves management and once-hungry fans spoiled by success led to only slightly more than 550,000 turning out during the final lame duck season in Milwaukee. It's now late September 1965, and on the eve of the final Braves game in Milwaukee, a lonely figure sits quietly in a deserted County Stadium press box. Earl Gillespie, voice of the Braves to millions of fans during the past 13 seasons, pauses to reflect on memories of Milwaukee Braves baseball that took place in this ballpark. The attendance records, fan enthusiasm, the feats of Warren Spahn, Eddie Matthews, and others, and especially that memorable night in September 1957 when Hank Aaron hit his dramatic pennant-winning homer.
The pitch to Henry Aaron, a swing and a drive back into center field, going back towards the wall. It's back at that fence. And is it caught or not? It's a home run. The Braves are the champions of the National League. Henry Aaron just hit his 43rd home run of the year. Holy cow. Henry Aaron away from the plate. He just hit a home run over the center field fence. We did it. That's the league champions.
And then it was Wednesday night, September 22nd. This was it, the final game. Sandy Koufax and the Dodgers, who were fighting for a pennant, against the Braves and left-hander Wade Blassingame. Before and after the game, it was only fitting for Gillespie and members of the media to get Braves players and officials to comment on their years in Milwaukee and their thoughts on the Braves' move to Atlanta for 1966. And, of course, the Braves' 1-2 batting punch during those glory years in Milwaukee were Eddie Matthews and Hank Aaron, who set a record for hitting the most home runs as teammates for one ball club. They passed Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig for that honor in May of 1965.
Well, I would have to say that Peepers here has been wonderful to me as my own personal reason is concerned. I know that my family and we all regret what have happened in the last year, but it wasn't any of the ball players choosing. But the thing that I can remember most about Milwaukee is the way that they opened their hearts up and accepted me and my family into their hearts.
Eddie Matthews and manager Bobby Bragan had these comments.
Well, there's a lot of good moments. I met my wife here and married a Wisconsin girl. I've lived here 11 years. The attendance, the thrills that were involved in those years, and of course the World Series.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed my 3 years in Milwaukee. I can say that in all truthfulness. Mrs. Bragan and I came up and found an apartment up in Wauwatosa and didn't even bother to go back to our permanent home in Fort Worth.
13 years ago, the Braves' first home game ended in extra innings, with the Braves winning in dramatic fashion. Tonight's game would also go extra innings, but end in agonizing defeat. 12,577 fans showed up to say goodbye with standing ovations, the first as the Braves take the field. Eddie Matthews, a future Hall of Famer who brought Braves fans many thrills over the years, runs out to his customary third base spot. Braves starter Wade Blassingame makes his way to the mound. Hank Aaron is set in right field. The Dodgers scored a run in the first inning, but Koufax is in trouble in the second when Joe Torre, Gene Oliver, and Matthews single to load the bases. Second baseman Frank Bowling is at the plate. It's the first grand slam of Frank Bowling's career and his 7th home run of the season. The Braves now lead 4-1. That blast by Bowling is the high point of the evening. In the third inning, a standing ovation for Hank Aaron. And Hank raps out his final Milwaukee hit in a Braves uniform. With the Braves leading 6-1, Chairman of the Board Bill Bartholomé explains why the Braves are leaving.
We believe our position is sound, and we are going to open in Atlanta on the 14th of April. I believe the date is next year, and that's it. It's an impossible thing to explain to that type of fan. The only unfortunate thing, there's not enough of them, apparently. We've made every effort to make this thing go here, and our most severest critic, the leading paper here in Milwaukee, as recently as a year and a half ago, said that we were doing the finest job in promoting baseball that ever been done in Milwaukee. And we've done everything we can to renew the even part of the interest that existed in the 50s. We've got a contending team here this year, and already now we're still very much in this. We're beating Sandy Koufax tonight, but the support has been, at best, very limited.
Fighting desperately to overtake the Giants for the pennant, the Dodgers tie the game off 5 Braves pitchers. The score is now 6-6 in the top of the 11th inning when manager Bobby Bragan comes out to make another pitching change. And you can hear the boos as the fans feel that Bragan is sympathetic toward Braves management. He calls for number 22 Dick Kelly, who comes on to replace Chichi Olivo with Dodger runners on first and second. The Dodgers punch a run across and are leading 7-6 as the Braves now bat in the last of the 11th. With 1 out and Mac Jones at first, Hank Aaron is coming up to bat against Dodger reliever Bobby Miller. Hank swings, and it's a drive to center field. Ron Fairley makes the catch. And he throws back to first to try to get Jones. Out! A double play, and the game is over. The Dodgers win 7-6. A heartbreaking defeat for the Braves and the end of the last Braves game ever played in Milwaukee. Fans start to come out onto the field. Someone wants to grab some infield dirt. I wonder if he still has it. And now others storm the field. Meanwhile, most fans sadly leave the ballpark not knowing if they will ever see Major League Baseball played again at County Stadium. They do know they have been part of a historic night. Actually, it would be 5 years before the Seattle Pilots would move to Milwaukee to become the Brewers, and local fans would have another team to cheer for and call their own. As they make their way out into the cool Wisconsin evening, they pass signs and banners from some well-wishers. However, most feel betrayed by a team which is leaving for what is perceived to be greener pastures. Some Milwaukee officials interviewed after the game believed it would only be a matter of time before the town again had big league ball.
My honest opinion, I think that we would be without Major League Baseball in the most only 1 year. Now, I don't have anything real concrete that I could say at this time about why I feel that way, but I honestly feel that we perhaps might be without Major League Baseball for 1 year, if that long, but no more than 1 year.
Well, I think that Major League Baseball has got to put Milwaukee in the picture simply for the reason that Milwaukee has always been so good for Major League Baseball, and the fans are still interested in it. They might possibly not have shown it this year, but it's an odd situation this year. I don't think this year is a true determiner of how Milwaukee feels about Major League Baseball.
Perhaps longtime Braves statsman and assistant publicity director Bob Allen summed it up best. His comments have a prophetic ending.
Earl, as you know, I spent, about 12 and a half very happy years with baseball here in the Braves of Milwaukee. I traveled throughout the state of Wisconsin and 8 surrounding states talking about the ball club, and of course it was just tremendous during every one of these years. Only the Yankees have outdrawn us, as you well know. It's a beautiful plant and a beautiful facility here. And I think that baseball and the National League in particular and the Braves owners handled this entire matter in a very disgraceful manner. And I think that not only the fans of Milwaukee and Wisconsin or the press in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but all over the nation feel the same way about the Milwaukee situation. I think the only way the National League and baseball can rectify the situation is to return baseball to Milwaukee, where it once gave baseball a tremendous shot in the arm.
And so the lights go out at County Stadium, signifying a sad end to a glorious 13 seasons of baseball in Milwaukee. And in Atlanta, well, they were getting ready. Here come the Braves.
In early spring 1964, giant earth-moving machines start excavation of what is destined to be the biggest and best teepee an Indian brave ever called home. The site is a 62-acre reservation 1 mile southeast of Georgia's gold-plated Capitol Dome in Atlanta. The eventual completion here of a modern coliseum at a cost of some $18 million will mark two tremendous achievements for Atlanta and the Southeast. First, the completion in only 51 weeks of a stadium the equal of any in professional sports. And second, the fielding of the first Major League Baseball team in this part of the country. The acquisition of the National League Braves to play in Atlanta is a real baseball story, as exciting as any you'll find. Atlanta's push to bring Major League Baseball to the Southeast had strong local support. A team of the city's leaders, with Mayor Ivan Allen in the leadoff position and backed up by banker Mills Lane and businessman Arthur Montgomery, had started scouting for a team in 1963. Several teams were considered. Rumored negotiations gave rise to speculation about which team it would be. But when the smoke cleared, it was the Braves. Work on Atlanta Stadium never slackens. The original budget is sweetened by some $700,000 for extra rush overtime work. And in the 51 weeks asked for, the stadium is delivered. On April 9th, 1965, a baseball-hungry crowd of 6,000 people mobs Atlanta Airport to welcome the Braves for a three-game exhibition series with Detroit's Tigers. And they're led by the mayor of the town. Technicalities have come up that will block the Braves' move in '65. They won't be calling Atlanta home until the '66 season, but the fans react in grand style. We've waited this long, they say. Another year won't matter. The reception is tremendous. It feels like World Series time. The mayor greets Braves officials Bartholomew and McHale and team captain Matthews. Club manager Bregan gets a tremendous reception from the fans. And Hank Aaron receives the key to the city on behalf of the team. The band, the fans, the team, and the speeches. Atlanta welcomes a new era of big-time sports in the Southeast. The 10-minute motorcade into the city makes a point. Atlanta's Braves will be a regional home team. Atlanta Stadium is just minutes from her jet air terminal. And being a scant 200 yards from the largest interchange of interstate highways in the region, makes home games within easy reach of fans in 4 states. $60,000 fans line the streets, clamoring, cheering, and hounding the stars for autographs. For many of the players and coaches, it's like coming home. Eddie Matthews, as the 18-year-old star of the 1950 Atlanta Crackers, once rattled the outfield boards of old Ponce de Leon Ballpark. And Dixie Walker, a former manager of the Crackers and a native of Birmingham. Whitlow Wyatt, another Cracker manager. Mac Jones, center fielder, an Atlanta native. And Coach JoJo White from College Park, Georgia. It's still early April and the season hasn't begun, but baseball fever has hit the city. Even though the business affairs of downtown Atlanta have come to an abrupt halt with the Braves' arrival, work on the field and in the stands at Atlanta Stadium doesn't slacken. All available help is thrown into the fray as the condition of the playing field quickly shapes up. The new outfield sod is painted green. The final touch-up goes on everywhere. Even though game time isn't far away, nobody quits. The magnificent 51-week effort goes right to the wire. It's obvious the stadium won't have its final polish for this first Braves game, but it shows what's ahead. The new look in baseball, the big park, and the fast game. The fans start arriving in mid-afternoon, and at 5:30, the 40 gates to Atlanta's new home of the Braves swing open. 38,000 fans troop inside to watch baseball and to satisfy their curiosity. They're anxious for a first look at these Braves they've heard so much about. And for most fans, it's a first look at this new stadium as well. The first pitcher to take the mound in Atlanta's new ballpark is a fellow named Carl Sanders, left-handed and wild as a hare. The batter is Ivan Allen, who finds one he can reach and drills it into right field. Sanders, in the offseason, is governor of Georgia. Allen is Atlanta's mayor. The Braves board chairman Bartholomew makes a brief appearance, followed by a presentation of the Braves by sportscaster Mel Allen. Individually and as a team, the Braves receive a real hometown welcome. That is a real fan. He's one of over 100,000 to witness this three-game weekend series between the Braves and Detroit. They come by bus, by car, by cab, and by foot to help initiate the team and the stadium. And what a stadium! Every seat with a clear view of the entire field. No poles, no pillars, just fun. This arena was built with every thought devoted to the comfort of the fan. The several seating levels are connected by access ramps that enable him to get to his seat in just minutes after parking his car. And the 31 concession stands make sure he's well fed while he's there. Not only can the fan relax in his own individual seat in complete comfort, he can bring 50,000 or so friends with him to see the Braves. And with these Braves, Atlanta and the Southeast will get an inside look at the greatness of Major League Baseball, with the possible added bonus of hosting a World Series in October. The club manager and his coaches are openly optimistic. Here's manager Bobby Bragan, aggressive and with a lot of spirit on the field. Ken Silvestri, Braves bullpen and catching coach. JoJo White, third base coach, a native of Atlanta. Whitlow Wyatt, pitching coach and former Cracker manager from Buchanan, Georgia. Dixie Walker, batting coach, manager of the 1950 championship Crackers. These six men set a new Major League record last year, as each one hit over 20 home runs during the season, a total of 166. That's a lot of muscle. Matthews and Aaron set another record, most home runs as career teammates. Mac Jones, 31 home runs. Joe Torre, catcher and quarterback of the Brave squad, hit 27. Felipe Alou, outfielder, 23 homers. Gene Oliver, catcher and first base, 21. Hammer and Hank Aaron, one of that record-setting sextet, is called a superb fielder, a good runner, and one of the most and third baseman for the Braves, is the oldest man in the starting lineup at 34, and a longtime favorite of Atlanta fans. Matthews was a popular hero when he hit 32 home runs with Dixie Walker's Crackers when they won the pennant in 1950. He was 18 years old, and Atlanta fans have followed his career ever since. Elected to serve as captain of the Brave squad by his fellow players, Matthews had a part in setting or tying 8 different records during the 65 season. Matthews is a fixture at third base. He's played more games and had more fielding chances there than any other player in National League history. Mac Jones, until 1965, could have been elected the Braves' most variable player. His career was like a yo-yo, up for a while, then back to the minors. But when the chips were down, the Braves really needed the long ball and the strong outfield defense. Mac Jones arrived. Manager Bobby Bragan called his arrival one of the biggest boosts the Braves got all season. Jones has become a genuine favorite with the fans in center field. Watch him steal this outfield fly. Joe Torre, at age 25, is on his way to becoming one of baseball's all-time greats. He hit 27 home runs during the '65 season with a solid .291 average. Like many of the young Braves, Torre is a dangerous man at bat with a good eye and easily capable of the long ball. New York's amazing Mets offered Braves management an astounding $500,000 to part with the big man. Joe Torre's regular spot in the field is catching. But because of a hole at first last season, he spent a good bit of his defensive time there. The Braves' acquisition of first sacker Lee Thomas late in the '65 trading period, however, will move Torre back to his backstop position in '66. Another of the bustling Braves to hit over 20 home runs in '65 was first baseman outfielder Felipe Alou with 23. The former medical school student from Santo Domingo is a strong hitter and displays tremendous speed in the field and on the base paths. Alou should be a key factor in what manager Bregan describes as a faster brand of baseball in the upcoming season. Bunt, hit and run, and squeeze the life out of the opposition. Alou's late season injury severely handicapped the Braves as they scrambled for position in the pennant race last year. Here's Gene Oliver, the sixth of the Braves batsmen to hit over 20 home runs. He hit number 19 against Sandy Koufax of the Dodgers and number 20 off Juan Marichal of the Giants. He doesn't pick on easy ones. Last season, Oliver spent most of his time behind the plate while Torre helped fill the gap at first. He finished up with a very respectable .270 average. For a big man, he's surprisingly fast and sure on his feet. Oliver is a former fullback for Northwestern University. The pitcher's mound could hold the key to Brave success in '66. And top man in the starting pitching department is Tony Cloninger of Iron Station, North Carolina. Here, the Cloninger touch proves to be too much for Willie Mays. Last year, Cloninger became the Braves' first 24-game winner in 17 years. Relying basically on a humming fastball, Cloninger added a slow curve and a changeup and rang up 210 strikeouts. He could well be the top starting pitcher in the major leagues this year. Along with Cloninger in the starting rotation on the mound is curveballing southpaw Wade Blasingame. This 22-year-old is a big leaguer through and through, chalking up 16 wins last season. Blasingame gave the club badly needed pitching support when Denny LeMaster developed serious arm trouble. Blasingame should be even better this year. The batting contingent requires a strong bench for sticky situations, so the starting pitcher must rely on the man in the bullpen, the relief specialist when the need arises, because there are those days. The Braves bullpen bunch is proving itself to be one of the most dependable in the game. Here, Phil Niekro, 27-year-old right-hander, takes the mound to save a game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Even though you'll seldom see 20 victories credited to a relief pitcher at the end of a season, his importance to the team is like collision insurance on the expressway. He is frequently the only man who can pull the plug in the other team's rally, as Niekro has just demonstrated against the Pirates. Another sparkling reliever, Billy Odell, came on in late innings in 62 games last year. Odell compiled the best earned run average on the team. Hank Fisher, a 25-year-old starting right-hander, could win as many as anybody on the team this season. And Clay Carroll, at 24, has already made his debut in Atlanta Stadium, appearing in a starting role during the Braves-Tigers exhibitions during early '65. Woody Woodward, like most of the Braves, is a youngster at 24. He had a tremendous pair of shoes to fill at shortstop when Dennis Menke was knocked out due to an injured knee early in the season last year. But the flashy infielder from Florida State University came through in strong style as a dependable hitter and a good man with the glove. Here's Frank Bowling, who's been a regular at second base in the Braves infield since 1961. Bowling came back from a bad slump in '64 to be a mainstay in the crucial second base slot this past year. Rico Carty's '65 season, his sophomore year in the big leagues, was a study in frustration. He had been sensational in his rookie year in 1964, copying second-place batting honors for the entire league. But an untimely injury during spring training kept the hard-hitting Dominican from reaching near his potential in '65. And his injury was one reason the Braves finished in 5th place last October rather than 1st. Yes, the Braves will all be there, and all-time greats from other teams as well, like Sandy Koufax of the Dodgers. Koufax was elected Athlete of the Year by the country sports writers in 1965. Willie Mays of the Giants, whose dependably steady performance, great power at the plate, and breadbasket catches in the outfield have made him a favorite of fans from New York City to San Francisco. Mays, born in Westfield, Alabama, poked a tremendous total of 52 home runs in '65 and is one of the Giants' all-time top 10 hitters. Also from the Giants, considered by the players as one of the best right-handers in the big leagues, Juan Marichal. Jim Hart smacks one over Mac Jones' head and into the center field stands in this late-season Giants-Braves game. Hart, 25-year-old infielder and a strong competitor, hails from Lenore City, North Carolina. And with his ability to poke that long ball, he gets pretty careful handling from opposing pitchers. This is the Giants' Bob Shaw, a veteran of quite a few major league campaigns. Shown here in action for the St. Louis Cardinals a short time before being traded is shortstop Dick Grote. The one-time batting champ for the National League tries to beat one out against the Cincinnati infield here, but not quite. Here is Mike Shannon of the Cardinal outfield. Shannon is a former Cracker, as are three of his teammates, Buchek, Gagliano, and McCarver. This is Curt Flood, smallest man in the Cards outfield, but big as any man when he stands at the plate. Flood streaks to second here on the hit and run against Cincinnati, and moves along to third as a bonus because of defensive interference. Roberto Clemente of the Pirates and league batting champ singles against the Braves. Followed by teammate Bill Mazeroski, Pirates second baseman. Chicago's Ernie Banks, veteran infielder for the Cubs. And young outfield star Billy Williams, who pulls one into the stands against the Giants here, are a couple of the stars who will be representing the Windy City against Atlanta's Braves this year. Williams is another Alabaman, hailing from Mobile. Joe Morgan, hustling second sacker for the fledgling Houston Astros, is another of the National League's youngsters with tremendous talent. This is Sammy Ellis, young but impressive right-handed delivery man for the Cincinnati Reds. And Joey J., husky right-handed starting pitcher who is one of the Reds' mainstays on the mound. Here's scrappy infielder Pete Rose, fifth leading hitter in the league with a smart .315 average and a fine glove man, too. Joe Nuxall, 37-year-old veteran and a southpaw, is one of the most experienced men in the Reds' pitching corps. Here's Cincinnati's Darren Johnson, who led the league in RBIs in '65. Always a dangerous man at the plate, slams one out of the park. This Memphis, Tennessee native is also one of the league's best defensive men in his position in the outfield. right on the heels of Pinzon's round tripper, outfielder Tommy Harper knocks one out of the park. Harper is from Louisiana. No commentary on the National League or on baseball generally would be complete without a look at Yogi Berra and New York's amazing Mets. One of the two newest teams in the league, the Mets haven't exactly overwhelmed anybody, but you never can tell. With Berra keeping up his steady stream of chatter, here he practices on Gene Oliver. With the younger Mets getting more experience and stability, and with a little more here and a little more there, all this and a little bit of luck, the Mets could do it again. These stars and others from all 10 great teams in the National League will play for Atlanta and Southeastern fans all summer long. And it promises to be a terrific summer for baseball and its fans. Manager Bobby Bregan sees a trend developing in today's game. An emphasis on running, going for the short ball in the tight spots, and bunting with a squeeze play brought out of mothballs. Bregan sees the 66 Atlanta Braves playing this kind of baseball, and he sees the fans loving it. These Braves are young, many still in their early 20s, but still with the experience-bred moxie of veterans. They're strong with more men capable of the long ball than any other team in baseball. And potentially, their pitching is the best. According to the experts, it could be any one of 6 teams in the National League this year. The Braves, maybe, or the Dodgers again, or the Giants, Cardinals, Reds, or Pirates. And it could be all 6 of them right down to the wire. So at last, the Southeastern baseball fan has a Major League home team. He can attend home games in person or tune in on the Braves radio and television network. Either way, he'll have a ball. So come on out, fans. Here come the Braves.
Deep, deep. It is gone. He did it. He did it. Henry Aaron is the all-time home run leader now. Listen to this. He did it.
The excitement exploded throughout Atlanta Stadium on Monday night, April 8th, when Henry Aaron hit his historic blast. And you're seeing it the way NBC Sports caught it, live before the largest regular season baseball audience in television history.
There were many exciting headlines written in 1974, but none captured the imagination of the world as much as one swing of the bat by 40-year-old Henry Aaron. For 21 years, he chased Babe Ruth. In 1974, he caught him. During that span, Aaron set 20 National League and 17 Major League records. He could do it all. Stealing bases, fielding flawlessly, and boasting a lifetime average in the 300s. He was named to 22 All-Star games. Will finish his fabulous career in Milwaukee, where he started in 1954 as the complete player. And that's how one of sport's biggest all-time heroes wants to be remembered, as Henry Aaron, the complete ball player. He says, "When the curtain comes down, my record will speak for itself. I'm not trying to make anyone forget the Babe, but only to remember Hank Aaron."
And here comes Hank Aaron, number 44, getting rid of the heavy bat, using the stick he really wants to use. He already has 714. He'd love to have that 715 and break Babe Ruth's record. Lefty Al Downey of the Dodgers on the mound. Runner on at first base. The swing, a long drive toward left field. The left fielder going back. It is up. It is in that bullpen. It's a home run. He had it all the way, number 715. What a memorable night for Henry Aaron. Look at those kids come on the field to get a piece of Henry Aaron. That coach at third is Connie Ryan. He's got to be a happy guy as he circles third and heads to the plate with that whole dugout poured out to greet Henry Aaron. What a memorable night for baseball. Just to see in person Hammer and Hank's name printed forever in Major League Baseball's record books.
The 1981 Atlanta Braves highlights are brought to you by U.S. Army Recruiting. Be all that you can be with today's Army.
Season number 16 for the Atlanta Braves began with a slogan, an optimistic slogan, "This could be the year." As for the first time in nearly a decade, a contender in Atlanta, a pennant race for the Braves appeared to be a real possibility. This young, hungry team had no glaring weaknesses. On paper, the Braves were stronger in every category. And it wasn't just wishful thinking. For as spring training began, the top experts in the game agreed, as one preseason publication after another hit the stands with the Braves ranked as a first division team. But it was not to be in 1981. This would be the year the Braves found that some areas of the team were not as strong as they should be. This would be the year that an unbelievable string of injuries would cut down one key player after another. And finally, this would be the year cut short by a strike that shut down the game for 2 months.
Bruce Benedict, all-star catcher for the Atlanta Braves.
Today's young people are some of the most talented ever. But like pro baseball, talent alone isn't enough. It takes dedication and willingness to make the best of what you are. That means college, and college is very expensive. The old GI Bill could help some, only it isn't around anymore. But today's Army still recognizes talent and offers a new way to help pay for college. In a few minutes, we'll talk about the new Army College Fund and over $20,000 for education.
There was every reason for optimism as the 1981 season began, for no team in the major leagues outperformed the Braves over the final 6 weeks of the 1980 campaign. But now it was time to find out, as April 10th brought the Braves to Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, where they would try to end a 9-year opening game jinx. The always tough Cincinnati Reds would provide the opposition. The festive opening night crowd welcomed a former Iranian hostage, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Scott, who threw out the first ball. But then Cincinnati's Dave Collins hit out the first ball, and an ocean of uh-ohs flooded the stadium. Bottom half of the first inning and free agent acquisition Claudell Washington immediately began to return dividends. His leadoff double is followed by walks to Glenn Hubbard and Chris Chambliss. Then a Dale Murphy single off Mario Soto ties the score at 1-1. By the bottom half of the 8th, the Braves had fallen behind 2-1. But another walk to Glenn Hubbard puts pinch runner Ed Miller on at first. Bob Horner follows with a single, and when Jerry Royster comes on to pinch run, the Braves have speed at both corners. A Chris Chambliss double, his second of the night, drives home both men, and Atlanta has a 1-run lead. Dale Murphy then drives one downtown, and the Braves are up 5-2. Cincinnati threatens in the 9th, but Rick Camp comes in from the Atlanta bullpen and strikes out the only batter he faces, Johnny Bench. That gives the Braves their first win in a season opener since 1971. The Braves took 2 out of 3 from the Reds before heading for Houston to meet the 1980 Western Division champions. Phil Niekro and Bob Nepper locked up in a pitcher's duel in Game 1. It goes into extra innings before rookie Rufino Linares drives home Rafael Ramirez with a base hit. And the Braves were 3-1, the best start for an Atlanta team in 10 years. 2 nights later, Tommy Boggs pitched a 2-hitter and lost, an ominous sign of what 1981 had in store for him. Boggs, in fact, had a no-hitter going into the 7th when Craig Reynolds broke the ice with a single. A bunt by Cesar Cedeno was the beginning of the end for Boggs. A wild pitch eventually scored Cedeno, and the Astros were 2-0 winners. The Braves gave Boggs more than enough runs his next time out. At Riverfront Stadium, Atlanta had a 3-0 lead going into the 9th when they erupted for 7 runs, sending Cincinnati to its worst home loss of the season. Atlanta beat Cincinnati again the next day as 42-year-old Gaylord Perry won his 290th game and unveiled his 291st pitch, the puffball. National League President Chub Feeney would eventually rule the puffball illegal, making Perry the first pitcher in baseball history to be warned for throwing one too dry, as well as for throwing one too wet. The next week saw the Braves lose 6 straight as Atlanta bats fell asleep. This kind of inconsistency at the plate would haunt the Braves again and again throughout 1981. But the bats came back on May 3rd at Wrigley Field. Atlanta pounded out 18 hits in a 9-7 win over Chicago. Each and every starter contributed 2 hits in that game. But it was also on May 3rd that a freak injury struck down reliever Gene Garber. Gino felt something pop in his left ankle as he retired Leon Durham for the final out of the 6th inning. He would find out later the incredible: the ankle was broken. Braves bats stayed hot as the team moved on to St. Louis. In the first of a 4-game series, Bob Horner went 4 for 4 with 2 doubles and 3 RBI in a 9-6 win over the Cardinals. Atlanta would finish the week-long trip with a 5-2 mark to keep them near the top of the National League West. The final day of the trip saw Jerry Royster enter the Braves record book. Entering the game as a pinch runner for Bob Horner, Royster promptly stole second, tying Ralph Garr's career stolen base mark of 137. Following a walk to Dale Murphy, the Braves executed a double steal with Royster on the front end, and the new record was his. The Braves swiped 98 bases in 1981, and despite the strike-curtailed schedule, that tied the Atlanta team record. The Braves emerged as one of the best at preventing the steal in 1981. Catcher Bruce Benedict finished the year with more assists than any other National League catcher. Gunning down nearly 50% of the opponent's would-be base stealers, Benedict was rewarded with a spot on the National League All-Star squad and was behind the plate when National Leaguers nailed down their 10th straight win in the All-Star game. Dame Fortune was not as kind to Tommy Boggs. By mid-June, the Braves had been shut out 3 times with Tommy on the mound, and at one point, Atlanta hadn't scored a run in 6 consecutive starts while Boggs was still in the game. But while one Braves pitcher was suffering through the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune, another was experiencing a midsummer night's dream. For the injury to Gene Garber gave 27-year-old Rick Mailer his chance to prove he belonged in the major leagues, and prove it he did. At one point, Rick strung together 14 consecutive relief appearances covering 21 innings without allowing an earned run. He would later win a spot in Atlanta's starting rotation. Out west, another young pitcher was making his mark. The fabulous Fernando was the talk of the nation. By May 28th, the 20-year-old Valenzuela was 8-1 and primed for a battle with the Braves and a man old enough to be his padre, Gaylord Perry. The game was scoreless entering the bottom of the fourth when Dale Murphy and Chris Chambliss singled, and Glenn Hubbard drew a walk loading the bases for Bruce Benedict. Bruce singled, driving home Murphy with the game's first run. 1 out later, Gaylord Perry stroked a single to center, scoring 2 more. A base hit by Rufino Linares made it 4-0 Atlanta. And after Biff Pocoroba was hit by a pitch, Dodger manager Tommy Lasorda did something he never had to do before: remove Valenzuela in the middle of an inning. Valenzuela's revenge came a week later at Dodger Stadium. Twice more would Fernando beat the Braves in an incredible year that would see him win both the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young Awards. As the strike deadline grew nearer, the Braves' injury list grew longer. By mid-June, 8 Braves, almost 1/3 of the team, had missed a week or more of the season. Al Raboski, Gene Garber, Jerry Royster, Bob Horner, Ed Miller, Bob Walk, Claudell Washington, Glenn Hubbard. When would it end? The answer would come in humiliating fashion. Limping into Montreal, the Braves were annihilated by the Expos. Atlanta was outscored 30-3 in the 3-game series, one of the worst in Braves history. Then came the news everyone dreaded: the strike was on. With Major League ballparks shut down at midseason for the first time in history, fans were forced to turn elsewhere for their baseball. Channel 17 viewers could watch the Stars of Tomorrow play as the Richmond Braves took on teams like the Mud Hens and the Clippers and the Tides. Those in need of a ballpark fix were invited to the stadium for something called Matrix Ball, baseball highlight films airing high above center field. Why, even Dick Van Dyke, in town for a production of Damn Yankees, was on hand to throw out the first reel.
Bruce Benedict for the U.S. Army.
Up to $20,100. A qualified high school graduate can accumulate that much with a 3- or 4-year Army enlistment, and just a 2-year tour can bring over $15,000. Not every enlistee qualifies for Army College Fund benefits, but for college, it's worth it. Your local Army recruiter has the details.
All that you can be, 'cause we need you in the Army.
8 weeks later, the season resumed, or should we say, started anew. But the split season was with us, and the Braves, who were in 4th place, 9.5 games back when the strike began, had a fresh start and a new chance to make the playoffs. Atlanta opened the second season in San Diego, sweeping a 3-game series from the lowly Padres. Moving on to Los Angeles, the Braves gave Tommy Boggs 9-run support. Gene Garber logged his first inning since early May, and Atlanta was 4-0 in first place, 2 games ahead of the pack. Perhaps this would be the year after all. For 3 weeks, the Braves combined outstanding pitching, timely hitting, and excellent base running to stay on top of the division. Even Lady Luck was on Atlanta's side. On August 23rd, the Braves managed only 3 hits off Montreal's Steve Rogers, but won the game 2-1 as Rick Mailer outdueled the Expos ace. 2 days later, the Braves literally stole one from the Expos. Ed Miller led off the 12th inning in a 4-4 battle with a single. After moving to second on a Claudell Washington sacrifice, Miller stole third, then scored when Rodney Scott threw away a Chris Chambliss grounder. The Braves held on for a 5-4 victory. Miller next demonstrated his larcenous ways against the Phillies. After his single scored Glenn Hubbard to tie the game, Miller swiped second. Louis Gomez followed with a walk. Then Miller took off again, destination third base. Pinch hitter Jerry Royster's fly ball to shallow right didn't appear to be hit deep enough to score the winning run. But then again, Ed Miller isn't your average base runner. And Rick Camp isn't your average relief pitcher either. The Tryon, Georgia native was twice named the National League Player of the Week, shared Player of the Month honors for the month of August with San Francisco's Ed Whitson, and at one stage of the season, Camp reeled off 25 consecutive scoreless innings out of the bullpen. When the season ended, Camp finished a close second to the league's Fireman of the Year, Bruce Sutter of the St. Louis Cardinals. While defensive mistakes hurt the Braves at times in 1981, a remarkable performance was turned in by the right side of the infield. Glenn Hubbard and Chris Chambliss combined made only 9 errors all season and repeatedly sent opposing hitters back to a disbelieving dugout. By mid-September, it was evident that the key to any playoff chances the Braves might have would be the team's performance on a 10-game road trip which began September 14th in San Francisco. But a base-running blunder cost Atlanta the first game on that trip. Both Brett Butler and Claudell Washington wound up at third base, and an alert Enos Cabell was able to tag both men out. At that point, the Braves' second season began to unravel. Another aggravating team batting slump struck, Atlanta scoring just 32 runs during a 14-game stretch. It was an especially maddening time for Braves pitchers. Led by Phil Niekro, the Atlanta pitching staff turned in one strong outing after another, but could get no runs to back it up. Niekro's dream of a championship season in Atlanta was fading once again. By late September, the Braves were eliminated from any playoff hopes, but 2 important series remained. First, the Braves were to stall Houston's march to a second season title as Rick Mahler notched his first Major League complete game. A 3-hit, 3-1 victory clinched Mahler's selection by his teammates as the Braves' most improved player. Closing out the season in Cincinnati, the Braves took 2 out of 3 from the Reds, knocking the team with the best overall record in baseball out of postseason play. Claudell Washington finished with a flurry, upping his average to .291, tops for Atlanta in 1981. But the final week of the regular season belonged to Bob Horner. Horner hit .579 with 6 home runs in as many games to earn National League Player of the Week honors. Horner also dazzled them on defense, each play more amazing than the one before. The final month of the 1981 season also saw the return of Larry McWilliams. Banished to Richmond at the end of spring training, McWilliams completely revised his delivery and returned to hurl 2 complete game victories, including a shutout. Newcomer Steve Bedrosian also pitched impressively after a late season call-up from Richmond. Used in relief for the first time in his professional career, Bedrosian served notice on National League hitters that his is a name to be reckoned with in future seasons. Brett Butler brought MVP credentials from the International League and immediately added speed and a promising left-handed bat to the Atlanta lineup. But the promise of future riches was not enough for Bobby Cox to keep his job as manager. The 1981 season ended with Bobby's dismissal. The new man at the helm is Joe Torre, former Mets manager and an original Atlanta Braves player. Torre inherits a team bursting with potential. He also inherits a team eager to forget the frustrations of 1981.
The 1981 Atlanta Braves highlights have been brought to you by U.S. Army Recruiting. Be all that you can be with today's Army.
Just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music. my friend.